Here I am and welcome back. This week's video is all about
The rule of thirds.
People have been asking me on
Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube,
why I use thirds, why I separate my page into thirds before I do a sketch. So we're going to delve into that in this video and look at some examples and why it's a good idea to use the rule of thirds for your compositions. So, oh, did you hear that? So let's go. We're going to start by looking at some photographs because the rule of thirds applies to photography as well. And I used to be a photographer, so I think this might be an easier way to explain it. So on your smartphone or camera, if you have one, you should be able to get this overlay of a grid that has two vertical lines and two horizontal lines, and this effectively splits your image into thirds, making it much easier to get the right composition. Now, if we look at this mountain range on this photo, you can see that the foreground more or less follows that lower horizontal line, and the peak just about reaches the upper horizontal line. Also, the valley on the left is more or less in line with the left vertical line. So this tells the viewer where we want them to look, and it also stops us having too much sky, too much foreground, and just keeps everything very pleasing for the eye. I should also mention that I got all of these photos that I'm using from Pixabay.com, which is a great website for finding royalty-free images. So let's look at another image. Here we have the Norwegian flag, so I assume this is somewhere in Norway. And as you can see, the flag is the main focal point of this image. So whoever has taken this photo has decided, I want the viewer to look at this flag, so I'm going to bang it right there on the third. However, that's not the only thing that is going on in this composition. If you look at the lake, the shoreline of the lake and the horizon of the trees kind of meet in the same place, and that is on the lower horizontal third. And then if you look at the top of the mountains, that is on the upper third. This rule doesn't only apply to landscape photos, it also applies to portrait as well. So here we have this tree in a desert. So if we slap the third grid on there, you can see that the horizon line follows the lower third, the tree almost catches the upper third, and it all falls in the middle of this third square in the middle there. So this shows us that not everything has to be on the third line, because each one of these squares is also a third. Moving on to some things that are not quite so linear. Here we have this lovely little dog. And again, if we split this into thirds, you can see that the eye that is closest to us is more or less on the third dot there. It's not exactly, but it's close enough. And the same thing along the right horizontal line is where you have all of the other interesting features, such as the tongue and the nose. Finally, we have an image that isn't a photograph. So let's look at this lady here. And she's looking up whimsically. And as you can see, the body lines up quite well with both of the horizontal thirds. And that eye, again, is on that third dot corner where the horizontal line and the vertical line meet. The rule of thirds is also used cinematically. So take a look at these clips and take notice of what lands on which third and why. So here we have Tower Bridge, both towers landing on a vertical third, the bridge landing on the lower third, and even the top of the towers are just around the upper third there as well. The reason our eyes like the rule of thirds is because if a subject is in the center of a photo or center of a picture, it's quite unsettling and it can feel quite forced, and our eyes want to do a bit more work. So if you place the main subject on the third, it gives more movement and it makes the photo or the image look much more dynamic. When you look around you, your eyes are very rarely focused directly in front of you. Our eyes are moving around all the time, looking for information. And that's the beauty of the rule of thirds, is the information isn't directly in the middle. Your eyes have to look for it. It could also be that our eyes have been conditioned to like the rule of thirds because they're used so often. Take a look at some of these famous images, and you can see that all of the important information either falls in one of the third gaps or on one of the third lines. Now I'm just going to show you a couple of examples of where I have used the rule of thirds. For example, here, quite early on, this one is from last year. This is the church in Sitges. If you imagine thirds here and here, I put the main steeple of the church on the thirds, which gives us something to look at this way, and it gives some empty space over here for us to use our own imagination if we wanted to. And here on this, which was just somebody's laundry hanging out to dry, thirds. Third for the blinds and a third for the laundry hanging down. On this one of the aeroplane, if you imagine that I split this into thirds like this, on each third line I have an engine, and if we split it into thirds this way, on the lower third, I have the wings spreading out. This we won't talk about. This is a failure. Sorry. This in Saragossa, the bridge is on a third, the highest steeple is on a third. Here in my little sketchbook, everything follows the rule of thirds. Rule of thirds. This is following the rule of third here, here, and here. This was a 15-minute sketch I did a while ago. Look at how my thirds are. They're here are my third lines, and here are my third lines. El Drac, this is in Park Güell. I didn't use the page as my thirds, but here is my sketching area, let's say. This line kind of represents a third. There's another third here, and then the two third lines go across here. So here, this intersection is where I have the most interest. This is where I want your eyes to look at his face, and then everything else is to look at later. You can see everything is on a third. Third line, third line, third line, third. He's kind of on the third if there was one there. Everything follows the thirds. So how can we do this? I need a pencil. So let's imagine that our canvas or our page is like this. There is no harm in drawing your thirds. You've seen me do it in videos. Just draw your thirds on there, and then you have that same image that I just showed you before. So let's say we are doing a mountainscape, perhaps. You might have one mountain coming down here, and the other one crossing over on this third, and going up here. So we have this third as well. Maybe there is a tree. The tree might poke out up here on the third. Well, ideally, I wouldn't have that covering the valley, really, but there you go. Maybe I should have done the tree here. But you get the idea. You have the third points and the third lines. Maybe if you're drawing a house or a building, you have your thirds. Let's say, let's have the house. The front of the house is on this side. You might have something of secondary interest, like the tree could be here, or there could be a person walking home. But if this was a person, let's make that a person. If this was a person, because he is on the third, it shows, if he was looking this way, it would show the distance that he has traveled. If he was facing this way, it shows the distance that he has yet to travel. So it gives movement to the picture. It doesn't matter if it's a square. You do the same thing. What should we draw on this one? I don't know, maybe a street or a road. Let's have this road traveling down here, across from one third up into this third here. Then you have your trees, sun in the sky. It gives your eyes places to jump around. For example, let's go back to this picture here. Let's try and do this in a boring way. Not using the thirds. Okay, there's the center. Oops, too aggressive. There's the center. That's where I'm going to draw my house. And then the man's going over here. He's too close to the edge. And this is too far in the middle. It's like, what do we put over here? The main idea is subject. There may be a secondary subject here or here. And that's basically it. If you're drawing like this, don't do it. Draw like this. That's supposed to be an arrow. Draw like this. I hope that helps explain the rule of thirds, and I'll see you in next week's video. Bye!